There they are, folks. The victory horns. Down with a wily veteran, Jack the Joker Hermansson, who outlasts Joe Bodybags Pyfer. One might say Jack Hermansson had the dog in him tonight as he earns a unanimous decision win, 48-47 across the board, and hands Joe Pyfer his first Octagon loss. Jack Hermansson just doing the thing tonight as we welcome you to the UFC Vegas 86 post-fight show here on MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck. What a crew we have assembled. In fact, it's the same crew as last Saturday post-fight. Let's say hello to the new Prince of Positivity, New York Rick, Eric Jackman. How we doing, sir? Welcome back.
It's great to be here with my predecessor, the original Prince of Positivity, and you, Mike, and you, Casey. Another great night of fights in the Apex, and let's talk about them.
Yes, great night of fights indeed. AK, would you agree with that? Great night of fights at the Apex?
Turned out okay. It was a rough going for a bit there. We had 14. Did we have 14 fights?
Oh, we did.
That's a lot of fights. I was, I'm not gonna lie, I was struggling a little bit in the beginning, also a little bit in the middle, and a little bit before the main event too. So it wasn't, but overall, not the worst experience I've ever had.
Yes, certainly not the worst experience I've ever had. But let's go ahead and start with the main event, New York Rick, because a lot of the talk on the preview show was we need to learn something about one Joe Pyfer. And we felt like this could be a fight where we do learn something. If Joe Pyfer goes out there and just annihilates Jack Hermansson like he's done to Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Gerald Mearshard and others, we wouldn't really learn a whole heck of a lot. Yes, it would propel him into a big spot in the rankings, but we wouldn't learn a whole lot. We got to see Joe Pyfer enter round 3, then we got to see him go round 4, and we got to see him go round 5. And I guess the question is, what did we learn about Joe Pyfer tonight? And what do we learn about Jack Hermansson that we didn't already know, which I think we probably knew what was going to come once we got to round 3, especially once we got to round 4, where the momentum was going in this fight anyhow.
Yeah, this felt to me like one of the more obvious one guy early, one guy late type of fights. In fact, I think I said exactly that on the preview show. Once it gets into 3, 4, 5, like this is where I think Hermansson's going to take over. I thought maybe he'd even get a finish. And the fact that he didn't is something I learned about Joe Pyfer. Like, my takeaway from this fight was, one, Jack Hermansson's a gangster. Like, Jack Hermansson is the man. And you can try and put him up against these prospects and hope that they're gonna pass the test, and he's not going to be the gatekeeper that prevents them from going forward. But he seems to kind of have a little bit of that magic, and he's just a gangster. As far as what I learned about Joe Pyfer, I learned he's as devastating and powerful as we've seen, right? Like in round 1 and 2, it looked like more of the same from Joe Pyfer. It looked like, okay, yeah, it might have been for real, and he's going to get Jack Hermansson out of here. And then we're going to be thinking about Joe Pyfer as fight night headliner a few times. But once it got beyond that, we learned that he's a little bit more limited and has some obvious holes in his game. But what I will say is they're kind of predictable holes, right? They're kind of the things that you would think are Joe Pyfer's limitations. And that's kind of an encouraging sign, if I'm being honest. Like, it feels like he has things that can be shored up, that can be fixed, and will lead to some future success. Like, I think the foundation, I think the tools are still there. I think if he uses his jab more instead of over relying on the power shots and really just draining that gas tank, maybe he's there in round 3, 4, 5 and able to turn it on. And we saw flashes of that, to be honest. Like, there's spots where I've noticed guys in Joe Pyfer's spot where they just go away, where, you know what, Hermansson's still here and I wasn't prepared for this, and I'm just going to disappear and I'm just going to lose this fight. And maybe I'll sit there for a sub and get tapped out. But he was there fighting and clearly affected. His eye was clearly affected by the work Hermansson had done, and he hung in there. And there were even moments where he was trying to implement his game plan and fight back in an effective way. So I'm kind of encouraged by the signs. Like, there's holes in Joe Pyfer's game, but I think they're very fixable. And I think there's something that if he's taken a real, a genuine look in the mirror, and being honest with himself, he can shore those up and probably put together a pretty impressive package. Because if you get more of what you see in round 1 and round 2, it's going to be hard for a lot of people to deal with as it carries into round 3, 4, 5. I did learn, and all I wanted from this fight was to learn about Joe Pyfer, and I learned. And I thought it was an admirable performance. I did not there, as I said, there's spots where sometimes you can see the guy quit, and you can see Jack Hermansson didn't crumble from what I had, and now I've got nothing. And I didn't see that from Joe Pyfer. I saw some encouraging signs. So yeah, great fight, perfect matchmaking by the UFC, and I learned quite a bit about Joe Pyfer.
What about you, AK? It was because I think if Joe was going to lose the fight, we kind of figured this is how it was going to go, right? He would have success early, and then the rounds would go on, momentum would swing in Hermansson's favor, and he would just kind of experience his way to a win. And that's kind of how it really played out. Like, we knew Pyfer's a little green, a little rough around the edges. We knew this is a huge step up in competition. Like, the leap from Abdul Razak Al Hassan to Jack Hermansson is like, it's a gigantic leap. But to New York Rick's credit, like, this is, if he was going to lose, this is how he was going to lose. And to me, there's just no way a guy like Joe and everything he's gone through in his life, there's just no way he's not going to learn and grow from this experience, right? Like, he's got to take a lot away from this one that he's going to be able to use in the future. And he's nowhere near done after this, I don't think.
Yeah, I think experience was the factor that a lot of us were taking into account here. And just to go, let's look at the numbers here. So this was Jack Hermansson's 32nd pro fight, Joe Pyfer's 15th. This was Jack Hermansson's 17th UFC fight, I think, and Joe Pyfer's 4th. So I mean, that's, if you want to talk about real experience gaps, 4 times many UFC fights for the Joker. That's not even getting into the caliber of opponents Jack Hermansson's been in there with. How many times he's gone 5 rounds in the UFC. When they started their careers, Jack Hermansson started in 2010. Joe Pyfer has only been a professional MMA fighter since 2018. So the gap is enormous. I picked Joe Pyfer because I think I do tend to favor up-and-coming fighters, younger fighters more often than not. That's not always the case. I think the situation reminded me a little bit of Mike Malott and Neil Magny, which we just saw a few weeks ago, where Mike Malott was pretty heavily favored. You could see how Mike Malott was going to win the fight. But if you were going to pick Neil Magny, you also saw how he was going to win the fight, which he did by outlasting him and finishing him in the 3rd round. So and next week we got Volkanovski and Topuria. So I kind of like this theme we have going in the first little bit of 2024 here, at least as far as UFC fights go, where as New York Rick said, this is perfect matchmaking. I don't think a loss here should hurt Joe Pyfer at all. There are clearly fixable, strategic elements that him and his team can work on. I like that his team was motivating to the very end. They're very real with him, maybe a little too real as some of the stuff that they were coming out with. I was like, whoa, it was like very strong. But hey, again, they're his guys, man. They know what to say to push his buttons. So kudos to them for going wherever they had to go to try and get that 5th round performance out of him. But hey, again, when you got a guy like Jack he mixes the martial arts so well. Again, he's done 5 rounds many times. Joe Pyfer's never done it. It's going to play out on paper in practice in a certain way. And again, this is how a lot of us envisioned it. So Jack, great for him. He's alternated wins and losses, I think, in the last 9 fights or something like that. He's just a really dangerous guy and is such a stiff challenge for anyone in the division. And it's a big learning experience for Joe. And I hope people aren't just going like, oh, well, he's done. He's just a hype machine. He's in his late 20s. He's in his prime. He's 27. He's 27. Doesn't turn 28 till the end of the year. I think you'll see him bounce back really well. And I think by the end of the year, we're still going to be really high on Joe Pyfer, assuming he gets a couple of fights in there before the end of the year and wins both of them. We'll be having this conversation again. This was just the right test for him. Okay, he didn't pass it, but he looked good against Jack Hermansson early on. He showed a lot. He wasn't like completely outclassed. He was just outlasted, and that happens to a lot of fighters coming up. So really, really enjoyable main event, and a huge congrats to Jack Hermansson. He's got that dog in him. You guys know I hate that phrase, but if you're going to use it, sometimes we'll just throw it around like, oh, well, someone like had a cool dunk or something in the NBA. He's got that dog in him. No, it means showing this kind of toughness, this kind of grit, and that's what Jack Hermansson's all about. So what a pleasure to watch him perform.
Yeah, there was like 90 seconds left in the 2nd round when Jack had Pyfer pretty much figured out. There was a moment where like he just got in Pyfer's face. Pyfer's back was against the cage. They traded some shots. Hermansson landed a nice jab and landed a leg kick, and Pyfer just stood there and smiled at him. And that's when I knew. I was like, oof, if I was actually going to gamble here, that's when I smashed the Hermansson live odds. But hopefully some of you tailed that from the pre-fight Q&A. But New York Rick, when you have a guy like Jack Hermansson, the dude just smiles all the time unless the cage door locks. Dude looked very intense, but I mean, this is like the Bull Durham of MMA right here. You just know what he's going to do. He's going to have something thoughtful to say after the win. And he says, look, a couple things I want to say. One, I want MMA legalized in Norway. I believe the second thing was, before that happens, I hope the UFC can go back to Sweden. And I would like to fight Nasruddin Imavov that weekend. I mean, just picture perfect stuff. Had perfect bite time. I think he nailed it. Sometimes you want Moose Tracks ice cream. Sometimes you want cookies and cream. But oftentimes, you can't go wrong with vanilla. Jack Hermansson, base hit up the middle. Well done. What did you think of the post fight and just everything he did? Rounds 4 or 5, and then once he had a microphone in his face, I think he nailed it.
Yeah, he did great. Jack Hermansson is somebody who knows where he is, right? He knows exactly what his place is in the UFC. He knows that making a call out of somebody who's above him or beat him or run it back is just not going to be the thing. And used his mic time effectively. Now, there could be an argument to say like, we'll forget about that interview tomorrow. And if he had said something crazy and shocking, we'd be still talking about it. But the reality is that's not who Jack Hermansson is. As you said, he's more of a basic flavor, right? He's more of a vanilla, chocolate, a strawberry type guy. And that's okay. And we can appreciate that. And when he gets in the cage, we get performances like we got tonight. So I'm all for some basic flavors of ice cream if they're Jack Hermansson. Ayo. And then, I'm all for it. Let's keep him busy because he's just a fun fighter to watch, like regardless of whether it's, against an up and coming prospect or it's against another veteran. He's just really fun. He's just really cool. He's super well-rounded. He has some awkward style, but he's also kind of technically sound. He's really like a fun, like mystery mix to me. And I always enjoy a Jack Hermansson fight. So yeah, I think it's smart. He knows exactly where he is in the UFC pecking order, and he's acting accordingly.
He added like some like peanut butter sauce to his vanilla ice cream at times.
I'm loving this analogy. I'm loving this.
Some like jumping knees to the body. These like not full Superman punches, but like half Superman jabs. Like just these little nuances to his striking was just so fun to watch.
He does weird stuff sometimes. Like he just mixes in some interesting kind of things that you really don't see from a lot of different guys. He has an awkward kind of frame. He's lanky and uses it in interesting ways. The takedown that he landed, it perfectly timed. He's just that type of guy. He's just a really fun fighter. And one of the things that I thought about when I was watching this fight in terms of Jack Hermansson and also Joe Pyfer is like, this isn't boxing. Like you don't have to be undefeated. Joe Pyfer is not, you don't have to win every single fight. It's not boxing, and that's not the only path to success. Not everybody's going to be Khabib. There's just a reality. Not everybody's going to be Floyd Mayweather, to tie it back to the idea of not having to be boxing. Like, think about a guy like Charles Oliveira. The most fun version of Charles Oliveira just happened after many, many losses previously. And this goes for, I'm just using him as the most obvious example, but this goes for so many different fighters. MMA is just more fun because it doesn't have to be that. And because guys can have late success and because it's a very complicated game to figure out. And eventually some guys do, and it happens later. And I feel like, to your point, like I think you mentioned this earlier, like this is not the end of Joe Pyfer, a loss. Like I know we love touting like undefeated prospect, like who's going to beat Khamzat Chimaev and this type of stuff. But there's just as much fun to a guy who suffers a loss and then comes back. So I think that's what we'll see from Joe Pyfer, but also a guy like Jack Hermansson, who's still in the UFC and still giving us awesome fights every time out. Like this is what makes MMA great. It's not just the like undefeated prospect on the rise. Can he do it? Is he going to continue to do it forever? In reality, like other than Khabib, everybody's answer is no. So we don't need to like overly put stock into that. Like let's enjoy them as we have them. And so I enjoy Jack Hermansson, and tonight was a great fight from Joe Pyfer as well. I enjoy Joe Pyfer.
Yeah. We're eventually going to get a Joe Pyfer versus Gregory Rodriguez fight, and I can't wait for that to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to happen next, but that's a fight that's going to happen probably in the next 18 months, and I'm so here for it. AK is a guy who is responsible for writing robbery reviews for the website.
Yes.
Speaking of fights that were kind of like vanilla in a certain way, this is maybe the easiest fight to score.
Yes.
Especially a main event that I can remember in a long time. This was not Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, where there's controversy and there's, maybe there's an argument here and there. Like, this was probably the easiest fight to score that I can remember that we led off with on a post-fight show. There was no Ron McCarthy with the 47-47 that we had to try to explain. This was this is easy peasy, AK. Isn't that nice once in a while? Like, no controversy. We know where this is going. Just a nice, easy, flat 48-47. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, the main card was easy peasy. I know we'll get to some of the other fights in a bit, but it really did build up well. Again, after maybe some dire moments early on. I was joking, saying like, I was struggling through later portions of the card. Not really. It's not like all the main card fights were bangers. There's definitely a couple that I'm sure we can point out as being forgettable, I think, to put it nicely. But as far as building up to the main event goes, it did so really well. And yeah, we got a main event with a clear narrative going in, a clear narrative throughout, and I think a pretty clear narrative coming out of it, as we've just discussed, where Jack Hermansson goes from here, where Joe Pyfer goes from here, what Jack Hermansson's career is going to be like, going forward, what Joe Pyfer has to do to improve, and where we think we'll see him in 12 months. It's all laid out pretty clearly, and it's not to say they can't surprise us. Maybe maybe this is the beginning of the end for Joe Pyfer. I don't know. Maybe he flames out. We've certainly seen that in MMA as well. I wouldn't bet on it, but we've seen that as well. Maybe Jack Hermansson, maybe this is his last big win. Who knows? Maybe now he goes in. I don't know. I don't know. But based on what we saw, it seems really plainly laid out what roles these guys are going to have going into the rest of 24. And again, for Joe Pyfer, possibly for the rest of his career. We'll see. So it was a nice card. Mike, I left a sort of poll. Very simple question, not to rate this card. But I just want to ask people: was UFC Vegas 86 better than UFC Vegas 85? I think both cards are still pretty fresh in our minds. There's still going to be recency bias, of course, but so far, 63% yes for UFC Vegas 86. It was a better card, and I think I agree. I think if you just especially take the highlights from the main card, I think I agree. This was better than last week. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, slightly. I mean, I think one of the big reasons for it was the man we're about to talk about, because there's things we're not really surprised about. New York Rick, Danny Gay punches really, really hard. Like, this dude punches really, really hard, as Andre Fili found out tonight. And I think he was a big reason. I think we needed like a big moment to happen to lead into this main event. And man, 50K delivered, did he not?
What needs to be said? They joked about it, but maybe he needs to get his wife pregnant more, because if those are the performances we get when she's about to pop, like, sign me up. Danny Gay is just unstoppable, mythical fighter alert. Danny Gay's pregnant wife about to give birth. But yeah, exactly what we needed. And, something that I think Danny Gay kind of needed a little bit. Like, I think Ige been a guy who, is easy to kind of fade into the background. Like, he honestly, like a little bit like a Hermansson. Like, he's just a guy who's in that division who I think people see as the bar and want to test themselves against. And it seemed like Andre Fili was saying, like, I want Danny Gay because I want to see where I'm at. And then he found out where he's at, and he found out where Danny Gay is at. So I think this is the type of performance that kind of raises his stock a little bit and puts him back in conversations where he's not just the gatekeeper, or not just the guy who's in the background kind of doing the work that is getting underappreciated. That was a really, really great performance. Like, obviously, what more needs to be said about it? That type of knockout. And yeah, I mean, the technique, the timing, the precision on that, just beautiful stuff from Danny Gay.
Yep. And like I tweeted out, because unfortunately, like the ambiance of the Apex just drives you crazy. Like, that knockout, like in front of a crowd, place would go electric. Like, it would have woken everybody up. And somehow I think this is the only tweet I had that made the broadcast, was like, man, Danny Gay just iced Andre Fili. And I was like, and you could hear a pin drop in a pile of cotton. And somehow that's the tweet that made the broadcast. But yeah, Ige delivers, and Casey dropped a Slack, like from the UFC's Instagram, where it was just like a cell phone shot of the knockout, where you could barely hear the crowd, obviously, because there's like 17 people there, no commentary. And it was just ferocious, man. Like that dude just hits like a truck. But yeah, Dan Ige delivers once again. Obviously, he gets $50,000. AK, I think you'll remember that moment when we look at this card. You feel that 86 was better. 6 months from now, when they say someone walks up to you and they say, AK, you're the Prince of Positivity. What do you remember most about UFC Vegas 86? What's the low key moment that I have to go back and watch? What are you going to tell them?
A low key moment, so something outside of the top two.
Doesn't even
for
have to
me,
be low key.
oh,
Just your favorite moment.
the Danny Gate thing was great. I was just thinking about, but it did bum me out a little bit though, because I had bought into the Philly Renaissance, the Andrenaissance. Did anyone else hop on? No, I thought Andre Fili. I thought like a guy, that last knockout, and then a guy who like is pretty well known, but just never has strung together wins. I thought he was going to go on a run, or at least put on go the distance with Danny Gay. Like maybe I think a lot of people peg this to be the fight of the night. But either way, great performance, Danny Gate. Not taking anything away from him. You look at the guys he's fought: Feely, Bryce Mitchell, Evloyev, Josh Emmett, Zombie, Calvin Kattar, Barbosa. It's a pretty insane resume for Danny Gay. So I guess maybe him KOing Andre Feely was probably more obvious to some than myself. But I also really enjoyed Rodolfo Vieira. Thank goodness, saving the opener, because I can't lie. I had been the prince of negativity when it came to this matchup, Vieira and Armin Petrosian. It had been rescheduled, and I was like, why? Like, when this fight got postponed the first time, you should have just canceled it. I hate the style matchup. I didn't think Vieira could get him to the ground. Petrosian, for me, great technical striker, but just not someone who I consider to be must-see TV. Fortunately, Vieira proved me so wrong. Great wrestling, got the fight to the ground, and once he gets the fight to the ground, his jiu-jitsu is just... It's so effective. It's not super flashy, but it is definitely fun to watch. A masterful ground game, and he ended it. What I thought was going to be a 15-minute slog lasted under 5 minutes. So I'll go with Rodolfo Vieira, making me look like a fool as usual. And I hope we see a lot more from this guy. Just he's had one or two clunkers in there against guys he just couldn't take down. But let's just keep finding matchups for him where he can jiu-jitsu people, and everyone's going to be happy.
Yes. Great performance from Rodolfo Vieira. That earned him $50K. New York Rick, who's the UFC Vegas 86 sixth player award winner for you? Who's shown brightest that you didn't really see coming?
Yeah, before I do that, I want to say, AK, I was there in solidarity with you. I was on Andre Fili for the vibes. I was definitely there with you on the preview show. I was all about it. I thought this was the time. I thought maybe, look, it seems too obvious. Danny Ige is going to get this win, so maybe we're going to upset the apple cart here, and obviously we didn't. Shout out to Danny Ige for proving everybody who believed in that right. For me, it was Bogdan Guskov. That guy's the man. Like, AKA NoHo Hank, shout out Jed Mishu, AKA Bizarro Anthony Smith. Like, that dude is the freaking man. The fight, first of all, was incredible. But then to get the mic time and drop like 3 different things that I'm going to remember, it was very out of nowhere Moicano-esque for me. Now, certainly not of the profile of Moicano, and won't have near the legs that type of mic time will. But yeah, I just not somebody who was on my radar, and then not somebody I will ever forget now. And I will be paying attention to. So yeah, maximized his fight time and maximized his mic time for sure.
Yeah, that was one of those fights where I was like, man, if we get 5 minutes into this fight, it's going to get real bad. And Bogdan just shut the lights out on Zach Pauga and then cut the promo after. He's probably the correct answer. I do want to give a shout out to Carlos Prates, because that dude, I think, saved the card. Because when we talk about the sloggy moments of this card, Max Griffin, Jeremiah Wells was not what we thought it would be. It was fine. And then we got...
It was okay. It was okay.
It was okay. It was okay.
That fight was okay for me. Yeah.
Marcin Prachnio, Devin Clark was pretty much what we expected. Loma Lookboonmee, Bruno Brazil, I expected a little bit more excitement there. Beloji Okai versus Timothy Kwamba, I thought was going to be like absolute fireworks. Didn't get that. We were starting to lose it a little bit. The energy levels are starting to drain up. I had crack open a Celsius at that point, and then Carlos Prates, it was like I drank a second Celsius. He just ethers Trevin Giles leading into the main card, and the momentum of the card shifted. So Yeah, great performance, great debut. Had some interesting calls. Already called out Santiago Ponzinibbio. I mean, damn. One UFC fight and you were already going for Ponzi. I like it.
The call-outs these past 2 weeks have been unhinged. I let me say for Bogdan, even calling out no, he could get the Anthony Smith fight. I could see that, but I need to see.
I mean, as a gimmick, they'd almost have to do it. They'd be forced into it at this point.
I at some point, and I might be giving away my wild card pick for on to the next one. I don't know, but he needs to fight Yuan Cutelaba at some point for maximum payoff.
That'd be.
I just feel like if you want something insanely random and probably very violent to happen, I need him and you. I think Yuan's booked, if I'm not mistaken, but he'll be free soon, and I think him and Bogdan somewhere in the future need to meet up.
Yes, Kutalaba's book. I believe he's fighting Felipe Lins at UFC 299.
Yes.
So I mean, it's not that far away. That's like a month away. We're less than a month away from that, so you could still book that. You could just do fantasy matchmaking, win or lose. Boom, you got it. AK, just make sure you mention that, and
might have to.
You'll be due free. So yeah, the card started off real weird. The pacing was incredible. Like they're like, "Hey, I'm Brendan Fitzgerald, and we already have our second fighter coming to the cage." And then it ended with multiple kicks to the ding ding. Richie Lane couldn't continue. Daniel Marcos looked really good, so that was kind of like unfortunate the way that ended. We mentioned Bogdan Guskov just doing Bogdan Guskov things. Hyder Emil really impressed me today. That dude is a friggin' tank, man. Fighting that guy, he sucks.
He's vicious. Yeah. You know, he throws things with really, really ill intent, and it has a style that is going to be fun to watch as he's kind of coming up. I was impressed as well.
Can I say also? I thought the UFC did a great job of setting up, and this is going to sound very disrespectful, but we've said this on the show many times. You need fighters who are good nails. You need fighters who are going to lose in spectacular ways. That is where I would chart like Fernie Garcia. Like he was 0-3 in the UFC heading into this one, going up against an undefeated guy. I'm pretty sure the matchmakers, not that they play favorites necessarily, you know, they think they see something in Hyder and they're like, well, this is the round. But Fernie was a replacement, I think, right for Bagdasarian, and then Nurmabeka and Nurmabeka was a replacement for anyway. There was like 2 replacement opponents before they got to Fernie, excuse me. But I'm glad guys like Fernie exist. I know he's gonna get cut. I get he's 0-4, but you need people like Zach Paga. You need guys like him. Really, Ihor. I thought Ihor. That was the whole point of getting Ihor to step in on short notice to save the Robert Bricek fight, and then instead Poirier did the damn thing and beat Bricek up. But I think that I like the intention of some of the matchmaking here to get newer names over. It didn't work for everyone. Even the main event. The main event, if Joe Pyfer had beaten Jack Hermansson, boom, you're rocketing him into the top 15, right? So didn't work out. Doesn't always work out, but I think their hearts were in the right place with how they made some of these matchups.
Yes. So there you go. All right, we can go to the peeps now. Congratulations to all the winners, all the bonus winners. And there's Casey. Hi, Casey.
Hi, everyone. Good seeing you guys.
Bring your questions up. Of course, super chats get to the top. By the way, New York Rick, Achilles Jr.
Yes.
Who got in the back and forth with you? He apologized for his behavior yesterday, by the way.
Wow.
Joe. He did.
You know what? Bygones be bygones. You're welcome back anytime. Shout out to you, Achilles.
Incredible. I love this. Love this. Super chats, bringing people together, settling beefs.
This is what it's all about. See? Like, look, you know, the Cavs absolutely dismantled the Raptors earlier today, and me and AK are sitting here like we're best buds, you know?
What is happening? Wow. What is happening right now?
There's no better, you know, community building type of thing than this show right here.
I'm having a bad time. We're trading first round picks to bring in Kelly Olynyk. I'm having a bad time, New York Rick. I don't need this right now. Congrats on the ninth straight win. 9 straight wins for Cleveland. I will say very impressive. And
second seed, baby.
And if I have to choose between any team making it at least, it's obviously not the Raptors. I'll take friggin' the Cleveland Cavaliers over the Knicks, the Sixers, or the Celtics any day of the week. So I'm actually kind of rooting for Cleveland here because I know out of the contenders in the East. I'm just saying.
My man.
Yeah,
this is where I'm at.
All right, let's talk about some real fights now, not some silly.
Are we talking about the dogfight card?
Roman Reigns and Cody WrestleMania.
Stop. All right, we have a super chat here, And
Yes.
a
All
bit of
right.
a. I'm,
Uh,
I'm gonna put this on the screen, but no,
Yeah, do it.
it's a super
oh
chat.
boy. Just another hype job exposed as a bum by an already proven bum. The
Oh.
UFC is such an effing joke. Damn.
I don't see.
All
I
right,
don't
Hunter.
see it that way. I do not see
People
it
have-
that
I
way.
don't either.
They have the right to their opinion. They have the right to their opinion, especially if you're a super chatter. If you're a super chatter legally, your opinion means more than others. I think that is how the super chats work, right? Yes,
Yeah.
you have to.
That's toward the end of the Constitution. It says that somewhere.
Yeah, it's there. It's
It's
no,
like
but
toward the
obviously, I
end.
think. Yeah, I don't think that's the best way to view fights like this. Like we said, Joe Pyfer doesn't lose that much, other than giving us a better game. I saw people saying, again, the word exposed and he's overhyped. Like, how is he overhyped? What was the expectation? Even if he smoked Jack Hermansson, we're not all going to be like, oh, Joe Pyfer should fight for the title by the end of the year. No one's going to be making that case. No one's going to be saying, oh, he's definitely going to be world champion. The upside here was to beat a guy with a number in his name in the UFC rankings, and again to give us, regardless of the result, give us a better gauge of where Joe Pyfer is, and we got that. He is not as good as Jack Hermansson yet. That's it. That's what we know. It doesn't mean he's a bum. It doesn't mean he can't beat someone else in the top 15, or he can't be a top 15.
It does
guy
not mean
soon.
Jack Hermansson is a bum, because he is
It
not
does,
a
certainly
bum.
does. No. Jack Hermansson's
Not
a
at
very,
all.
very, Jack
Not at
Hermansson's
all.
a very, very good fighter. Just 'cause, again, Jack Hermansson's lost fights. That's fine. Everyone loses. You hang around long enough, you're going to lose fights. He's also got some pretty impressive wins too. So, I don't think this is the popular opinion out there. But hey, like I said, everyone can say what they want when they watch a fight.
And for the second part of this, where the UFC is an effing joke, that is not true, because jokes are funny, and the UFC doesn't do anything fun. So no.
Oh.
I think, on the preview show, and AK, obviously you weigh in on this. I think we all said basically like this was the fight for Joe Pyfer, and if not, like he was maybe one different fight away from being in there with Jack Hermansson. Like it would have been like an intermediary step. But if he's a hype job, like you would think theoretically he'd be getting pushed towards something he doesn't deserve, right? That's what I would consider a hype job, where it's like you're getting something that you don't deserve or you can't hang, and they're just setting this up for success. But ultimately, like this was a fine fight, and the result of it kind of proved that, right? The result of this showed
very competitive. It came down to the last round.
Yeah. So I get the idea that like there's a pushback, and I talked about this earlier. There's a pushback against this, like everybody's an undefeated prospect and they're going to rise up the ranks and they're never going to lose again. And that's kind of what the UFC does sell. I will admit, I will grant you that is part of the promotion, right? But ultimately what they're trying to achieve is they'll do that, and hopefully they can win as long as they possibly can. They'll pick up enough fans along the way that maybe they lose, or maybe they don't. Maybe they get a title. Ultimately, their job is to get you excited for these fights and push you in the direction of thinking that these guys are superhuman and superstars. But he didn't really get anything he didn't deserve here. Like, this was the right fight. And if not, it's 2 fights away. So, like, ultimately, yeah, I wouldn't call Joe Pyfer a hype job. I just call somebody that they're, like, watching and investing in, and rightfully so. He's a young talent and what a division would typically need. So I get the intention of what you're saying here. There is a kernel of truth to it here, but ultimately I don't think Joe Pyfer like got anything that is given to a hype job. I think ultimately this was right. This was exactly what this was supposed to be.
Yep. Yeah, and what was hyped? He punches hard. Yeah, he punches super hard. This doesn't change.
And
that.
he does.
He's a really hard puncher. Again, like you said, he's a young guy in the middleweight division. Yeah, does that get changed? No. Everything that was hyped about him was up to this point was true. There was nothing that was like diffused other than if you thought, oh, well, they're pushing him as like a top 5 guy. And I never got the impression that anyone was saying, oh, Joe Pyfer is a top 5 guy right now. If he beats Jack Hermansson, he's definitely a top 5 guy. No one was saying this. I don't know who was saying this, but it wasn't me.
The one thing though that I am kind of very interested in about Joe Pyfer's kind of future career is, can he still improve as a fighter and thrive with this kind of just negativity that he uses? Because everything's like what is it, the 5th round when his coach said,
yeah,
I mean, that was your dad doesn't want you to win. That's why you need to win. I was like, I've never heard that before.
And for the context, he's talked about a very
Yeah.
bad relationship with his father. Like this was something to really motivate him, utilizing it as fire, as fuel, as opposed to like support, right? This was something to make him say like, be indignant and fight back here.
Yeah. And we've heard coaches say things like that before. I think coaches are like, this guy's attacking your wife, or something. They'll try to give you this big negative kind of energy. And I just wonder, has that hit a limit? Has he hit a ceiling as far as like growth as a fighter with this kind of negative energy, which is great. You need kind of, I guess, negative and positive
You need
energy.
a chip on your shoulder. You need something at times.
It works,
right?
but
kind of get you.
I know everyone's different. So, but I just wonder about that. Even in this post-fight interview, actually kind of concerned me too. I don't think they should have done a post-fight interview in the cage.
Agreed.
I think it should have waited, give him some time to decompress. It was a main event. It sucks for him. It's a big loss, but him kind of not coming like. I did a lot of interviews. Of course I was going to lose. Or whatever. I mean, I'm gonna kind of ignore that and just say he was emotional and just hope that wasn't how he is gonna. I hope that's not his true takeaway from his performance tonight. So
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. If I'm going to say, which I agree with, I don't think he should have gotten that post-fight interview. I'm also okay to toss it out too, right? Anything he says in that, I'm also okay to like say, if we're kind of submitting this as evidence and it shouldn't have been, then I'll toss it out. I'll kind of be like, look, that probably wasn't the right time. He was emotional. Okay, I'll skip it. Even though ultimately, if I look at it in a vacuum or look at it objectively, like I didn't love what he said either. Like it felt a little bit like an excuse. But I'm okay tossing that away because I don't think he should have had a mic in his face at that time. Like that probably wasn't right. As far as the coach thing, I think AK nailed it earlier, right? Like they know him best. I think that was you who said, look, they know him best and they know how to motivate him or not. And if that's what he needs, like I'm going to trust that they know. But I do think there's some reality to what you're saying of like, the motivation can't always be to fight against everything, right? That sometimes it has to be in the positive direction. Sometimes it has to be the support and not the you against the world type of mentality. But man, he's 27. I feel like there's so much time ahead of him.
Exactly.
That he can really fix a lot of this. Like he has what he has, you can't teach, right? Like he is a big, physical, powerful person. And that is the harder part. That not everybody is gifted. Not everybody is blessed with those gifts. If you can learn the other stuff, if you can learn how to have some grit, if you can learn how to pace yourself, it seemed like actually he was kind of pacing himself. I almost feel like in hindsight, he might have been better trying to blow it out in the first round and just really try to get him out of there. Like, I'm going to kill you and you're done. Because as it kind of went on, he ran out of the gas and ultimately he was sunk. So maybe that would have even been better. But I think he will learn these lessons. And I'm pretty confident like these are very fixable errors, right? There's some guys where you look at and you go, he doesn't have it. Whatever it is, he does not have it. And you can't fix the problems that he has. His problems are pretty fixable. Now, will he fix them? That's not for us to say right now here. That's to see in the future as he continues to fight. But my stock is not lower on Joe Pyfer after that performance. Like to hang in there with Jack Hermansson and win 2 out of the 3 rounds pretty clearly, to me is something you can build on. So I'm right where I was with Joe Pyfer. No stock down in my book.
He's been fighting since 2018. He's a baby. He's a baby in MMA, and I think anytime it's going to come down to combat sports, and especially in the current social media landscape, every win means someone's the best. Every loss means someone's the worst.
Yes.
Right? That's just how it is, right? But it's
retire.
But people don't realize like you're seeing these guys now develop live in front of you in the octagon. Like that's just how it is because of Contender Series, because of they got to feed the UFC beast. Someone who normally would fight for maybe 5 or 6 years on the regional scene and build up that way and take some losses on the regional scene and then make it to the UFC. You're seeing that part now. You're seeing that part live now. Joe Pyfer probably shouldn't be fighting Jack Hermansson at this stage of your career. Like we're complimenting the matchmaking because based on like what the UFC has to work with, then this is the right matchup. But in a perfect world, he's still like, fighting the regional scene, hopefully making better money. But I mean, whatever. I know that's not how it works, and doesn't get to the UFC till he's like, his 13th, 14th, 15th fight. But it doesn't work that way. Right? We know it doesn't work that way. So now you're getting to see these losses in real time. You're getting to see the shortcomings in real time, the development, even the personality. As New York Rick said, how do you handle a live mic after a loss? a lot of people get that opportunity before they come to the UFC. But now his first main event, he's getting a mic stuck in his face after this hugely like disappointing results. Of course, he's just going to kind of ramble and say some stuff that like sounds like excuses. And these aren't trained media guys, you know, they're just talented athletes and fighters that we suddenly stick a microphone in front of. So it really is harsh to judge him too much on some of the things he said today and how he performed in rounds 3, 4, and 5 of this fight. And again, I'm just trying to provide perspective, right? I'm not saying you have to love Joe Pyfer and stay on the Joe Pyfer bandwagon, but just have some perspective on what these losses mean and how their reactions to it mean at this stage of their careers.
Yeah.
All right.
2 takeaways from this. One, very intrigued to see how people will react when Joe Pyfer has his next fight booked. Is it going to be similar to his teammates, Sean Brady, after Sean Brady got kind of dusted up by Bilal Muhammad? Everybody jumped off the Sean Brady train, and then he went out and had one of the best
really good
performances of his career against Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah.
And then to say Jack Hermansson is a bum, like, come on, man. The guy hasn't lost 2 consecutive fights in over a decade, and that was in Bellator. That was both of his Bellator fights he lost. And since 2017, he got knocked up by Thiago Santos in 2017, which at that time, like, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Thiago Santos was the Joe Pyfer back then.
Yeah.
Much.
I always imagine, what if social media had been more of a thing when GSP got submitted by Matt Hughes in the first fight? Can you imagine people?
I would have destroyed him.
I would have
ripped him apart.
He's never going to be a champion. He's never going to be a champion.
I would have destroyed that fraud so quick.
Of course.
Well,
let me bring another more personal example then. What about, imagine if after the BJ, the first BJ and Jens Pulver fight. Imagine that.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then imagine people going after him and be like, BJ's exposed. He's never going to be a champion. He couldn't even beat Jens Pulver this day. You know? Like, imagine that. And I'm not saying Joe Pyfer can reach the heights of a GSP or a BJ Penn. I'm not saying that. But this is how crazy it is when someone takes a competitive loss and then people are so quick to bury them. It's just, guys, combat sports just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah.
You nailed it. Everybody's a hero when they win, and everybody's a absolute scrub loser when they lose, and it's just not real. And also, like I talked about boxing before, you talked about how everybody's kind of fast tracked at this point, right? There is no like intermediary steps. Like in boxing, if you started in 2018, you're not fighting on headlining shows. Like you're getting more reps, and that's just the model is different now, and we are seeing the warts and the flaws. But what I love about MMA is what I said earlier is like, it's kind of cool. I'd rather see that. I would rather see some of the perseverance and struggles and road bumps than these like carefully manicured careers where it's all everybody's great and they're undefeated, and then they finally fight. And guess what? After they lose the first time, now they're done. We don't want to see them anymore. I hate that. It's boring. It's so boring. Like I want to see adversity.
Yeah, Joe Pyfer's already lost 3 times. He's already,
he's not undefeated. Yeah,
he lost 3 times before this fight. You know, it's like we just happen to see this. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah. Dom Elliott asks, "Is Pyfer going to turn into the Chris Daukaus of middleweight?"
Probably not. Is my sense. Probably not. I think you can. I think you can win a hell of a lot of fights with the tools that Joe Pyfer has, without having to improve anything. Like, I don't think he has to do much, and you can still win a hell of a lot of fights with what he's got. So I think if he can improve, then yeah, I think he'll be around for a bit. So probably not. Probably not. But look, the UFC is a meat grinder, man. Like, if you start getting on a skid like that, sometimes that's it.
Yeah, you can go from hyped prospect to never was very quickly in today's UFC, and that's why we're just saying it's too early to judge with Joe. It's too early to judge. Again, nothing would surprise me if you went 2-1 in 2024. It wouldn't surprise me if you went 0-3 in 2024. That's just kind of the level he's fought himself to at this point, unfortunately, where he's going to be facing tough guys. We mentioned like RoboCop. We mentioned like a fight with RoboCop. That's a hell of a tough fight. Him and Gregory Rodriguez, it's a step back from Jack Hermansson, but that's a hell of a tough fight. And if he lost that and he loses 2 straight, I mean, people are going to bury him. But I don't think there's a lot of shame in losing to those 2 guys. But again, it would change their expectations, and that's very fair. That's a very fair thing to do.
Yeah. Maybe he's just a good middleweight. Maybe he's not the best middleweight. That's fine. Brad Tavares has made an incredibly long UFC career being a good middleweight.
I wonder if that's maybe you give him Brad Tavares next.
I was thinking that you
Maybe.
go from one gatekeeper to the other gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Brad Tavares, you go like Marc-Andre Barriol. That's not a bad one. Like
Lots of good
Middleweight's
options.
a good
A
division.
lot of good options
for guys
out
like
there.
Pyfer. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you, Dom Elliott. Ooh,
Thanks,
we
Dom.
have a Achilles Jr.'s back.
Yes.
The podcast listener. Wow, he really like go back to the People's Brew Fight show. He was like, sorry for my behavior yesterday, and now immediately he apologizes for absolutely nothing. I changed my mind. Rick, you can go back to sucking it. Casey, 10 out of 10. AK, 8 out of 10. That's good. That's a B minus.
It's a pass. That's a big
10
time
out of 10
pass.
for me. And Rick, you went from a 6.5 to a 7 to a 4. How do you feel about this?
I think what we need now is another super chat from Achilles Jr. I need an explanation of the 4 out of 10. What have I done to deserve this score? What can I do better? There's nothing else we can do other than you super chat again and let me know how we can improve the performance. You know what? I'm going to be a humble man right now. I accept your 4 out of 10 and I want to learn. I want to learn from you. Teach me how I can improve my 4 out of 10. Thank you. Please super chat again.
Unbelievable. You know, only at MMAfighting.com do you get such graciousness after getting a 4 out of 10.
I love this guy.
Yeah, Casey. Shout out Casey and Mike. 10s
Yes.
across the board, baby.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this. Another super chat from JN.
Thank you, JN. Does this
Thanks,
mean
JN.
Hermansson could take Ngannou's punch? Heck morning, BTL, the best MMA shows around. Happy birthday, AK Rick. You always have solid takes. So, maybe we have a little
Thank you,
JN Achilles Jr. little super chat.
A little
debate,
rivalry again.
perhaps. But yeah, happy birthday, AK.
Yeah.
Happy
Oh,
birthday.
wait, thank you. You know what? Happy Chinese New Year to everyone, by the way.
Yeah.
Year of the Dragon. Year of the Dragon. Happy Chinese New Year. everyone.
Or AK as we like to call it, just New Year.
Yes, you're correct. As we would say, yes, just Happy New Year.
What a rookie move.
I know. I'm trying to appeal to the common non-Chinese man. Okay.
Gung Hei Fa Choi, my
Gung Hei
friends.
Fa Choi. Yes. Does this mean Hermansson could take Ngannou's punch? I'm a little confused about so why is Hermansson's punch record like? There's just no video, right? There's no video, right? It's a story.
Pyfer has the hardest punch on that machine.
But there's no video. He just told Rogan.
Yeah, I don't think we have video of that one. And then obviously Ngannou had the punch score, but also the Ford scored and all this nonsense. So I think it's just whoever's the carnival game king at the moment, kind of, that's the bar. But I mean, would it surprise anybody to know that Pyfer punches as hard in that setting as Ngannou? It wouldn't surprise me. It's kind of like, those things are not.
It's more
it's not a real fight.
Pyfer really went hard and people not believing him. Like, how dare you not believe me? You nerds.
Oh, is that it? I wasn't aware of that.
That's why this is brought up, because people are like, right. Like everyone has an HD camera in their pocket, and yet no one saw this. This
is the Wilt Chamberlain 100-point game, right? Like, nobody has video of this? Okay. Yeah. I see. I wasn't aware of that little aspect. Now I understand.
So that's why I think that's why people are kind of making fun of him now.
It's a little fugazi. Yeah, he called the people criticizing him nerds. He called the people at the PI. He called the people at the PI nerds, I think, saying for some reason they wouldn't give him the record, like they weren't counting. I don't know. So I didn't fully understand what the reasoning behind that was, and most importantly, how was there no video of him attempting this?
Okay. But we need to answer this question. Could Jack Hermansson take a solid connection from Francis Ngannou?
Only one way to find out. Only one way to find out. Set it up. Let's set it up.
Poor Jack. I was looking at Jack's record, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? This guy was grappling with Hamzat Chimaev. What a gangster Jack Hermansson is. He's just doing all out grappling with, and now we're just gonna throw him in there to get decked in the face by Francis Ngannou. He would probably sign up for it just because he's such a thug. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think anybody on earth can really take a clean shot from Francis Ngannou.
No. That's
Not only did he wrestle Khamzat Chimaev, he lost, but he didn't get finished by Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, it was a fun.
It was competitive. It was a competitive wrestling.
It was a really
match.
fun match. It was really fun. It was one of those things that, like, you know, I'm not a big competitive jiu-jitsu watcher or grappling or those types of things, but I took some time out to watch that, and it was pretty fun, man. Like, they were really trying to give a good show for the crowd, and yeah, Jack Hermansson's just awesome. Jack Hermansson's just really cool.
Yeah, I think it took a while for us to kind of get Jack Hermansson, but I think we're there. I think
I think he was miscast as like a contender a little bit. Like, you know, he went that win streak for a bit. He beat Jacare. That was a huge win. And then, and he was, I think he was in the top 10, pretty firmly in the top 10 at the time. And then when he fell short of that, then people again kind of did what they're doing to Joe Pyfer now. It's like, oh, he's not a contender. I guess he sucks. He's not a contender. It's like, no, he's just a really good, like, top 15, top 20 guy. And that's fine. Yeah, so that's probably what happened a little bit there. And again, now we know what Jack Hermansson is, and it's great.
Was it the stretch
where knockout?
Was it the stretch knockout?
Like, that was the one.
Yeah.
Was it? It was like, was it the stretch where Darren Till pulls out and then Kevin Holland pulls out? I'm looking at the record and I'm trying to recall the circumstances. But he was doing like his own video series and like chronicling it, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'll sign up to fight anybody. I'll take it." He kind of, I feel like his stock went up pretty decently at that time as just a gamer. Like, I think everybody was kind of looking at Jack Hermansson and just like, yeah, that dude's a gamer. Like, I want to see that dude compete because he'll compete against anybody. I feel like there's a space, there's a home for those types of fighters always, where it's just like, yeah, put a name in front of me and I will fight them. And by the way, when I say that, I mean people who actually mean it, because there's people who say put a name in front of me and then they don't actually mean it. But then there's people like Jack Hermansson who say put a name in front of me and then they actually do mean it. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, dude, he did that when he lost to Roman Dolidze too. He's supposed to fight Derek Brunson.
Yeah,
and then like, I think it was like less than 2 weeks notice, Roman Dolidze steps in, who's like a totally different dude. And we have like the weird knockout from back control from Roman Dolidze, just like one of the weirdest finishes we've seen. Yeah, I mean, Hermansson's a gamer. The dude's such a gamer. And he's also one half of like the worst booking in the history of the middleweight division. Edmund Shabazian's on this nice run, and they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw you in there with Derek Brunson in a main event. And he just gets run over. And we're like, all right, now you take a big step back, try to build yourself back up. You know what, Edmund? Boy, do we have the guy for you. We're going to throw you in there with Jack Hermansson. And, well, you kind of know what happened. And then you know what they did? Hey, we're going to give you another big step back. We're going to throw you Nasruddin Imavov. I mean, geez Louise.
Oh, Imavov hurt him. That one, I felt bad because I knew Imavov was going to hurt Shabazian. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That was bad. Real quick,
and then they gave him Alchalum Gambula, which is perfect. I mean, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
And then they gave him Fluffy Hernandez right after that. I'm like, good God, man.
Before we go to other super chats, I just want to throw this comment up real quick.
Great point, Rick. This is why MMA is so beautiful. Losses can be teaching moments to elevate someone even further, and one loss doesn't end a career. 100%.
Yeah.
We need to remember more of this, you know? Like, it's...
Can each of you give us what you think will be the main event for UFC 300?
Yeah, listen, you're gonna get Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, and you're gonna like it. All right, people, stop dreaming. Stop.
I used to think that, but now Dana's heels are way too firmly dug in. He's there was this was the scenario. There was a point after Gaethje and Holloway was announced where if Dana White, instead of continuing to say, this is going to be the greatest card and the greatest main event ever, and you guys are going to be blown away, which he has now doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on. If at that exact moment he stopped that rhetoric, I think they could have booked a Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, and everybody would have been riding so high on how great Gaethje and Holloway is that they would have taken it and been like, you know what, we're looking at this thing. It's pretty great. We love this. But now it's just continued it's going to be the greatest thing ever. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. And now expectations are once again out of control. They have been mismanaged and they are out of control. And I think Dana's heels are too dug in on this. And I think he's going to have to put something better than that together, or more, not better. That's the wrong word, because I don't want to be disrespectful to that fight. Something more enticing, something more appetizing for the fans together than that.
More 300.
Is it going to be a Super Bowl announcement? Are we going to find out tomorrow?
They should do that. They should 1,000% do that. That would be brilliant.
What if it's
brilliant.
What if it's Bilal and Leon? Then would you still
They're not doing that. They're not doing
But
that.
would you do no Super Bowl? Come on.
They're not doing Super Bowl Bilal and Leon. Definitely not.
That's the Super Bowl of welterweight
You'll hear
fights.
less noise. You'll hear less noise worldwide than we heard inside the Apex when Danny Ige knocked out Andre Feely.
I mean, the answer is sitting right there for them. They're not going to do it because from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense. But there's one guy who's begging to fight. That would be the perfect fighter for UFC 300, and it's Conor McGregor. Like, duh. Like, what?
Yep.
Like, duh. The biggest duh in human history. But for some reason, they're trying to ice him. They're trying to extend however long his contract can go and keep those 2 fights with him. Or save him for something else. It seems like, later in the year now. At first it seemed like June, and now all of a sudden Dana White's saying, like, I hope he fights this year. So who knows what they're trying to kind of do and save him for at this point. But you're out of options. It's time. The glass is here. Break, emergency, pull, Conor McGregor, parachutes in. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. The problem is, 1, they're trying to save him for whatever they're trying to save him for, and 2, now you're giving Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan and probably Gaethje and Holloway. I would imagine that they probably negotiated pay-per-view points. That's probably why that fight was made. And you're giving them Conor McGregor pay-per-view points. That's rough, right? That's a lot of money to be handing out. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't think Bilal and Leon is ultimately going to be it unless Dana's tapping out. He throws in the white towel on that one.
What do you think, AK? What's it going to be?
I've said my piece. I've said my piece, my best friend. I tell you, people will take this the Super Bowl of welterweight fights. All right, Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards.
Oh, you were serious. Okay.
This is what we deserve.
You were serious.
This is what we as a society deserve. All right, for sitting through UFC Vegas 85, sitting through UFC Vegas 86, showing that we will watch literally anything the UFC puts on. This is what we deserve.
For what it's worth, John Jones said he was called 2 days ago to fight at UFC 300. I think they will do anything in their power to not do Leon versus Bilal as the main event.
I heard Khabib said something too. He said, I don't know. Maybe it's in casual conversation. I think
Could
one
be.
of those Russian interviews. Like he said he turned down some money or something. Everyone's saying now that they were. This is going to turn into like 50 fighters are going to say like, yeah, oh, like after it happens, yeah, oh, I could have been the main event. I could have been the main event at 300.
Remember earlier when I said anytime, anywhere, any place, and there's certain fighters who say it and there's certain fighters who mean it. There's a lot of fighters right now who say it, but then, hey, we're calling your number, UFC 300 headline.
They should not take that fight. They should not take that fight till 2 more zeros are added to that check.
Sure. I feel like that's
because it is not about I don't want to fight UFC 300. It's about you guys are making a lot of money. I need to be making a lot of money also. And so whoever these fighters are that are negotiating right now, like the same thing Dustin Poirier did with I couldn't get a hold of my manager for a couple of weeks. I hope all these other fighters who are maybe in the running for this main event are just going. They're just waiting. Because the UFC's the UFC has put themselves in a very bad spot.
And let me tell you something. Whoever ends up taking that fight, you better thank John Jones, because John Jones just upped the price for you by saying, I turned down UFC 300. So he put that out there that he got a phone call, and he's one of the biggest stars in the company, and he said he couldn't make it. So now it just shows like the desperation's even higher to get somebody in there. So now you can wait them out a little bit if you want to. You can play the game. Thank you, John Jones. Never thought maybe you'd have to say that, but I think John set you up for a couple extra shekels.
It feels like we've cooled on DDP and Izzy, right? But like that still feels like a really good, solid option. Like,
that's maybe the favorite. I think that's like the minus like.
I still think it's that one, but I think DDP and Izzy they are prize fighters above all, and they know what's up to. They know what's up.
And I think DDP has played this perfectly. He has played it beautifully.
I was about to say that.
Beautifully.
Yeah. You see his comments, and it reads to me, reading between the lines, it reads to me like somebody who's doing what Casey's saying, who's saying, yeah, maybe we've moved on from it. Maybe not. Maybe the money is there, and then all of a sudden I'm in. So yeah, I think we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. They're running out of time, so I think we'll find out. I definitely don't think we're going to see a Super Bowl commercial with Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. I'll tell you that much.
No, it would be with Conor. It would be with Conor. Like that would be incredible. Can you imagine
That'd be
that?
pretty
You
cool.
watch the Super Bowl and Dana's on a Bud Light commercial, and he's just like, "Wait a minute, who's knocking at the door? And he opens the door and it's freaking Conor McGregor handing him the signed contract. Like, that'd be incredible. Like that.
And they shot this like today.
Yes.
I can't wait. I can't wait till it's 14-10 at halftime. We've just seen Usher featuring Alicia Keys do a scintillating set. Maybe a little cameo by Taylor Swift. We're all having a great time. And then the first commercial coming out of that halftime show. Remember the name. UFC 300. Ed Muhammad. I can't wait to see everyone's reaction when this happens.
Oh, they pan to the crowd. The crowd's going crazy. Like, we were here for the Super Bowl. We didn't know we were going to get this news. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Who's number 96 for the Chiefs? Oh, my God. It's Bilal Muhammad in a Chiefs jersey on the sideline.
This is crazy.
In the game.
Wow,
oh, my God.
There you go. You got to sell it. You've got to sell it right.
Look, you can wait. You can wait for Bilal now. There's two options, right? If they do a pay-per-view in the UK, it's going to be in the summer. Okay, I know Dana said it's going to be a fight night, but you can do that. Also, there's talks and rumors and some innuendo out there, and there's some articles that were written like this past year. There's a chance the UFC heads to Newark in June. From what they're trying to do, they put in a bid to get the UFC in June. And you know who hates Bilal Muhammad? Newark hates Bilal Muhammad, and Bilal leaned into that real good before the Gilbert Burns fight, which also took place in Newark. Leon will look like a freaking superstar in Newark, of all places, along with the UK. So you could wait for June. Like, you could wait for June for that fight. You could wait 2 months.
All right. Got a few more super chats. Let's fly through these.
A fight of that magnitude, AK, deserves its own island, right? It deserves its own place. It can't share the mystique with Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway.
A fight island, you might say?
Newark Island?
No, I think we retired that. I think that one's done.
Yeah, thank God. With how great 185 is, why put Pyfer over?
I don't know what this means.
I don't know what this means either. Moving on. Next question. No, I guess they mean why push him of all people, I assume is the
because he's Dana's guy.
He's a Dana guy.
That's the sole reason. He's Dana's guy.
And as we said multiple times, they didn't really overly push him. He went 3-0. 3-0 means a step up in competition. They gave him a step up. So yeah, it didn't really overly push him, I don't think.
Yeah. Also, the result was he lost. Like, this idea that like they handed him a golden ticket, he literally just lost. Like, it wasn't a golden ticket. It was a tough fight against a really good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, you got another super chat.
Fahim, thank you. What will surprise you more, Ilya by first round TKO or Diaz versus Conor headlining 300? It's Diaz versus Conor by a mile. It would be Diaz versus Conor headlining 300 would be the answer over most things you could possibly put out there that are actually realistic.
Yeah, definitely. Because if Ilya first round TKO isn't like super crazy, I wouldn't pick it. I mean, again, I don't think either of these are.
His opponent just got knocked out in the first round, so
right.
Yeah, it's not that
But
crazy.
yeah, of course, I'm with Mike. It's definitely the Diaz Conor thing. I still think these guys meet up somewhere down the road, but I think as we've said a lot in the past, like it'll be when some magical day when they're both free of the UFC shackles and can just take all the money for themselves or something. So yeah, probably the headlining.
The thing about Diaz and Conor and why it would be unlikely, in addition to just the idea of like, you know, this 300 mania, is like they could have done Diaz and Conor if they wanted. Like, this wasn't like something that they were precluded from doing. They let Diaz walk. Conor McGregor was on the roster. They could have done Diaz and Conor. Like, there was no obstacle to Diaz and Conor. So, and when I say let Diaz walk, I don't necessarily mean like it was their choice and Diaz, you know, wasn't negotiating or anything like that. But ultimately, the two sides couldn't agree, and Diaz went and did his own thing. Diaz and Conor is a fight that if they ponied up, they could have made at any point. So I think, you know, it's more likely we would see it later than now. Like, when their back's up against the wall, they'll probably go to some more easy options. And also, you know, to the thing that Casey talked about, I'll tell you what, Nate Diaz ain't signing that check for less than 3 more zeros. You said 2 more? Nate Diaz is a 3-4-0 type of guy. So that's now that became a very expensive card. So yeah. Unlikely.
Dude, he's about to make a whole bunch of money. It's not done yet, but he's about to make a whole bunch of money to go box Jorge Masvidal. I think he's going to do that first. do that, and then we could talk. Like, I don't think Nate coming back to the UFC is like completely out of the question. I think the door is open for a return, mostly for this fight in particular. But at this point, after trying so hard to get out of there and being kind of pushed around by the promotion to get a fight, and then you finally get one, they try to throw you to the wolves with Hamzat, breaks in your favor. The MMA gods smiled upon thee with the like never before with the Tony Ferguson situation. Like, you go box Jake Paul, you lose, but you made a whole bunch of money, but yet you were the popular guy coming out. Your stock still rose because you slapped on a half-assed guillotine in the funniest moment in boxing history. And you still came out looking like $1 million. And now you're going to go make a whole bunch of money to go box Jorge Masvidal, a guy that you've already fought in a fight you might be able to win. And even if you don't, like, Nate's so good at turning losses into wins that the Conor fight is still there.
If you're Nate, you're sitting back and enjoying this UFC 300 stuff.
100%.
If there was ever a clearer sign that the UFC needed guys like Nate Diaz, needed true stars that people wanted to watch fight regardless of their records and just see in there, this is it. You're just sitting back going, oh, price just went up, price just went up, price just went up. And now come end of year, maybe Conor McGregor fights and maybe Michael Chandler's, on the ice, and Nate Diaz is the one in there and making a boatload of money. So yeah, he's in a really nice position, is Mr. Nate Diaz.
Yeah, every day Nate Diaz like UFC. No, that was yesterday's price.
Yesterday's price, not today's price.
That's not today's price.
Not today's price.
Oh,
I heard Ariel. I heard Ariel talk about this, and I actually didn't think of this, but I thought it was actually friggin' brilliant. He said he still feels confident that like Conor and Chandler is going to happen June 29th, that a lot of this is just like Dana wanting to control the narrative, which makes a lot of sense. And because Conor has 2 fights on his deal, like, and Conor's even said, like, when he did the in-studio spot with Ariel, like, I want to resign. Like, I want to keep fighting for the UFC. And I believe him when he says that. But Conor's also a very savvy businessman.
Yes.
What about Conor Chandler June 29th? Let's just say Conor comes out there relatively unscathed. They do this event at the Sphere, and then you do Conor Diaz at the Sphere as the main event. Like, that's fucking ginormous, because Dana's going to try to make this the biggest thing ever. And I know it's like a love letter to Mexican boxing or Mexican combat sports, but still, like, if you want to put on the biggest possible event,
Diaz is Mexican.
Yeah, you want to put the biggest possible event you can. That's it.
There's one problem. There's one problem with that. Is that would be the last fight of Conor McGregor's contract, theoretically, and that fight would cost them the most amount of money that's ever been paid to a fighter in history. So I don't know how
Dana would be okay with for this card only, though.
Maybe I would guess my guess is he probably will fight Michael Chandler, but I think it will be Michael Chandler or Nate Diaz. I don't think that the 2-fight sequence goes Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz. The murkiness of that one deal.
Yeah, they wouldn't give Conor the Sphere unless he resigned. Hey, you want to headline our biggest event of all time? You have to assign an extension. You have to give us 6 more fights or 8 more fights.
My early prediction is Conor McGregor does not resign. That's my very, very early prediction.
I love it.
Yeah.
All righty. One moment. A few more super chats.
Let's go.
I figured we had a whole bunch of 300 questions. Is middleweight deserving of UFC 146 treatment?
So I cheated. I cheated. I looked ahead. I looked ahead some of the super chat questions. Sorry, Casey. I don't mean to steal your to jack your swagger. As it were. Yes. 146 was.
I remember this card very well.
There you go. He's look at this production. He's read all heavyweights on the main card. All heavyweights on the main card.
Oh, that one.
Yes. So what Michael is asking is, should middleweights do it? I'll say no, hard no. But let's take this moment to do a quick moratorium on where we are with the middleweight division, because Michael, we had a very heated discussion on our last ranking show about the middleweight division, and I was at least convinced that it was a top 6 division in MMA. I'm like, okay, fine. I was like strongly against it first. I was top 6, and I think you and who was it? You and Shaheen were arguing top 3. It's like a top 3 division, and I think you guys are effing insane. But you made strong cases. If people go back listen to the show, I think they both made great cases. And so through the first few cards, I think I mean, I don't think we're at any. I don't think either of us are going to change our opinions because we had some really good moments tonight for sure. I thought the main event was good. Gregory Rodriguez, Brad Tavares was a lot of fun. Rodolfo Vera, again, like I said, took care of business. So middleweights this week were pretty good. The Delice and Imavov fight wasn't terrible. It was just kind of like bleh. It was like, just forgettable. It was not as competitive as to tonight's fight. So again, none of the really big guns of 185 have competed, obviously, right now, ever since, except for Strickland and Duplessis. So, again, we're still sort of incomplete here. We don't have to make any judgments, but, I don't know if middleweight has blown me away.
It's got to be the money division. It's got to be the 2024 money division.
Hold on. Lightweight, bantamweight, middleweight. Like, what about like featherweight? How is middleweight?
Featherweight can be three. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Shaheen has corrected me. He said he also said top 4. So he said exactly the 3 divisions you just said, Rick. He would put before middleweight. So top 4. They're saying top 4.
I actually had in that conversation with the momentum coming out of the Strickland DDP fight, I put middleweight at 3 because it's the money. It's not just depth, which there is more depth to middleweight than it gets credit for, but it is the money division right now. It is the most interesting division moving forward. It's the fight. Everyone's saying, like, what's the front runner to headline UFC 300? It's a middleweight fight. It's a middleweight title fight. Yeah, Strickland is one of the biggest. Like, it's just so interesting right now up the top.
If John Jones was healthy, we wouldn't be talking about, or if Islam Makhachev was willing to I don't think that's like the right kind of linchpin, like, just because we're talking about a middleweight fight.
I know that, but dude, Islam Makhachev versus Justin Gaethje is a great fight. Is it bigger than DDP Izzy right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but
I think Islam's one of those guys that headlines the big cards.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't even know how big Islam is actually, because I just don't. That side of the world, I just don't. I'm not even really. I can't really
post something on Instagram and check the comments, and then you'll see.
Yeah,
you'll see. There's a lot of people in there.
Yeah. I know he's obviously. I know he's big. I just don't know how big. And you and I wouldn't be shocked if you told me he was like bigger than I could even imagine. In a sense, I just don't. That's just part of the world. I just don't know their fandom really.
I guess I could hear middleweight 4th, but man, I feel like I'd put flyweight above it too. To be honest, I feel like I'd put flyweight even above middleweight right now.
Nah, it's not enough fighters in the division right now.
Middleweight's pretty top heavy.
For me, middleweight has been for a while now the worst division in the men's side.
No, come on, light heavyweight exists. You can't.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. Okay, well,
light heavyweight exists.
Yeah,
kind of.
Middleweight, light heavyweight. They're kind of battling for a bottom, but I'm not making money off these in a sense. But I'm talking about just what I want to see. Middleweight and 205 are like the bottom for me. Everything else.
Yeah. Again, so I will say we got 3 out of the 4 middleweight fights tonight did deliver pretty memorable moments. I'll remember the Greg Rodriguez TKO of Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares never gets knocked out, so I'll remember that. I'll remember the Hermansson Joe fight.
Hey, great reffing by Jason Herzog, by the
fantastic.
way. Fantastic. Just like a perfect stoppage. Like, it was like, boom, that was it. Yeah.
So middleweight did overperform a bit tonight. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say we need to give it its own pay-per-view. Also, nothing has quite the gimmickry of heavyweight, right? They're really only going to do that for heavyweights. It's not. There's no other division they want to do that
could
for.
Middleweight get a UFC Apex 146 treatment?
Yeah, maybe.
Because they kind of have the last 2 weeks. They kind of did.
Yeah, tonight is that treatment.
Yeah.
AK, you say the novelty of heavyweight, which there's some truth to that, but like, I don't know. I feel like an all lightweight card would probably be pretty gnarly.
Yes.
Would be pretty gnarly.
I just want to say the heavyweight.
By the way,
card, yeah, go ahead.
Gregory Rodriguez is my 30th ranked middleweight right now. Just to throw that out there.
I don't think
he's number 30.
Yeah,
and he's super fun. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, he's not super high ranked. But then there's guys who are ahead of him who are like not super fun. There's a chunky middle in there that's like, yeesh.
Once the top of middleweight is real fun, then it gets real dicey. then there's some fun at the the
Dude,
fringes.
Iron
as well.
Turtle. Iron Turtle's 32. Ikram Aliskerov, 33. Roman Kopylov, 36.
Your boy. I knew you had Slip in Kopylov, your boy.
Olivier is 42. He's
just a
he's
refresher.
42nd ranked middleweight right now, Adolfo Vieira.
Just a refresher.
Come on now.
146. That's because he got weird losses. The thing is,
Yeah,
these guys have weird, wonky losses. That's the thing. They have weird, wonky losses, which is what for me keeps the division from having any sort of like long-lasting appeal. Is any minute now, a lot of these great fighters we just mentioned can just slip and drop this bizarre banana peel performance. And it happens in any division. It just feels like it happens at middleweight more often than not. Again, I don't have the hard data for this, but just go back to 140 for 1 second. 140. I mean, that's great. 146 delivered in a weird way. So just quickly, Stefan Struve submitted LeVar Johnson, the man with no ground game, in 65 seconds. Stipe Miocic beat Shane Del Rosario with axe kicks. I don't remember this.
Wow.
Okay. It says axe kicks.
I'm on Wikipedia right now. It could be.
It says elbows
on. I'm on Wikipedia, not trustworthy. Trust me, not a trustworthy source. Roy Nelson, 51-second knockout of Dave Herman. Man, there's some names on here.
Dave Pee Wee Herman.
Dave Pee Wee Herman.
Respect. Was he Sasquatched up for that one? Was that one of the Sasquatch?
I don't think he was Sasquatched up.
Okay. Cain Velasquez, Bigfoot 1.
Dude,
first round knockout.
Cain Velasquez beat the brakes off Bigfoot. That was brutal. I remember.
Second one was worse.
That was the night.
Bloody.
So that.
I thought the first one was in the Strike Force. Was the first one in Strike Force?
No, they're both in the UFC.
No.
Oh, no, I'm thinking DC. I'm sorry. I'm thinking DC. I'm sorry.
They were really close together too. He destroyed him, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's watch him destroy him again." That was great.
Bigfoot beat Overeem, so they were like,
that crazy fight. Yeah.
Like, we have no. They wanted Overeem to fight Cain. Like, it's like, Overeem's going to run through a Bigfoot,
and then Antonio Bigfoot Sylvia had the upset. Yeah.
And then
this fight card was the day before my wedding. It was the night before.
Oh wow!
So I had like all the groomsmen over. We played poker and like drank some brewskis and watched.
That sounds pretty solid.
Watch heavyweights, just heavyweighting it all over the octagon. And there were people who had never watched sport before, and they were enjoying themselves until Cain Velasquez beat the shit out of Antonio Silva, and they were like horrified because it was just a brutal beating.
Oh god! And then JDS Frank Mir in the JDS defending the heavyweight title against Frank Mir in the main event. So middleweight could, you know what? Now that I think middleweight, I think could put together a card like that.
Hell yes.
And it's been almost 12 years. That was almost 12 years ago, and the UFC has not done anything fun since.
Never.
I don't think there's
not even
as far
all
as matchmaking.
As far as they've never even done an all women's main card, and it's right there. It's like right there. They've never even done it.
All these freaking Apex cards. No, you can do a whole Apex card of just guys who have funny names. I don't know.
Guys who have alliterative names. Guys with
alliterative names.
All alliteration cards.
All Parker Porter type guys.
The real answer why this could never happen 146 style is like, think about the names that you just listed off. Like mostly relevant fighters, top fighters. These guys are headlining Apex cards. Like if you're going to do middleweight, you would have had Joe Pyfer on that 146 version of this middleweight card. But instead and Jack Hermansson, but instead he's headlining a fight night. You just couldn't even put together the talent. They'd all be spread across so many different Apex shows and fight nights that you'd never be able to put together a card like that again.
This is true.
You could definitely do it.
And
Mike will do it though. He will book like a really solid middleweight.
You guys are underestimating middleweight. Shara Bullett's there, Bruno Silva's there, Michelle Pereira's there. Just all of the Nursultan Rudzabev, who's going to be a freaking just a horrifying guy to fight. They have more get or get got all-stars in the middleweight division than any other division in the sport. The Gerald Mearshars of the world don't exist in any other division where it's just get or get got, man. And there's a whole slew of them that we haven't even got to yet. So many.
Ihor Patera.
Oh, man.
I mean,
he's not technically a middleweight yet. He's not technically a middleweight yet.
Yes, he's a catch waiter. But Julian Marquez, I mean, everyone loves watching Julian Marquez fight.
Are you convincing me or not convincing me?
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're going here. Which direction are we going here, Mike?
When has Julian Marquez been in a boring fight? Tell me, because it's been a long ass time. Let's keep going.
Let's bring back Phil Haas.
Again,
two more
perfect
super
example.
chats. Two more super
All-Stars.
chats. Yeah, yes, it's true.
Oh, I like this.
Lopsided chat. This is a poll. Which fighter is most likely to pull out of their fight by next week? Paulo Costa, Ian Gary, Henry Cejudo.
That's funny.
No one.
Damn.
No one is the real answer. But if I have to answer, I'll say Henry Cejudo.
I'm gonna go.
Why
Cejudo.
Henry?
He doesn't want this smoke. He don't want that Marab smoke. This
Marab
is it.
smoke?
He
Yeah.
loses, he's out. He loses, he's out. I mean, Cejudo, he should. I don't mean to be so down on him, but I mean, I guess I'm still having some bad vibes from our first ranking show after he lost to Aljo. Well, in a very, very competitive fight, a very good fight, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. I didn't rank him. And so people are like, "Oh, you're crazy to not rank him." I'm like, I like people who win fights in the last like 5 years. That's like that's just a small criteria I have.
It's your fetish. Yeah.
It's my I get off on it. And listen, he hasn't won since beating Dominic Cruz and retiring in 2020, and that's just a fact. And if you want to argue he beat Aljo, okay, fine. I had no problem scoring the fight for Aljo. It was very close.
Yeah.
There was definitely a couple of toss-up rounds, so no problem there. But for me, you just have to win fights to come back. You have to win fights to earn your spot. Like actually get a win, split decision win, whatever. It doesn't matter. You just have to win your fight to get back. If he loses to Merab, I wrote this somewhere that he doesn't have anything to prove. Henry Cejudo has nothing to prove. He's one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time.
It's not about proving. He's
I know.
A paycheck, man. Man needs the bills to pay.
That's great. And
don't
a
need to
man's
prove
got to
nothing.
eat.
A man's got to eat championships.
I hope he got paid real well for the Aljo fight. I hope he's getting paid real well from the Merab fight. But if he never fought again, if he had never fought after the Sterling fight again, I would not have been surprised. And if fingers crossed, nothing. I hope nothing happens because I do want to see this fight. If he pulled out of the Merab fight, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Cejudo fight again. I don't think he's like, in poverty, but I get it. Of course, it's nice to get some fat checks every now and then. He probably does miss that.
Also, from just like a practicality logic perspective, like Henry Cejudo is now getting one shot at a title and one shot to put himself back in title contention, like immediately after that. Like these are just chances you take, right? Like even if ultimately Merab is who we all think Merab is, I think he's a champion in waiting. I think Merab is the guy in that division. But like you're getting a shot against the guy who, if you beat him, now you're back in every single conversation and you're on the verge of another title shot. Like you can build Cejudo versus O'Malley. So like even if you do, like this is worth the dice roll, in my opinion, every single time. If they're willing to put you in this spot, you roll these dice every single time you got them. So like I get this, even if I think Cejudo knows how good Merab is. I think he's you see him do his analyst work. I think he knows how good Aljo is. I think he knows he's very aware of how good Merab is. And he's just like, look, let me give this one more shot. If this is the one I don't get it done on, I think I'm okay. Right. Like I would say he definitely walks away. But if they didn't give him somebody like a Merab, I could have seen him not fighting again, to your point. But I think this is if you're going to give me one more shot to get back in there and put my name there, I'll take it. No problem.
And let me just say, I'm saying this within the parameters of this question. If I have to choose among these three,
yeah.
I know Paulo Costa's a weirdo. I know we just saw Ian Gary pull out a fight. But
do not disrespect my barber. Do not disrespect my barber.
Weirdo is a compliment.
Okay.
But I think I'm rolling the dice here and saying like that it's Costa's turn and Ian Gary's turn to have a whatever constitutes a normal fight week for them to actually get in. And I would think like if something weird's going to happen, it's going to happen to poor Henry. But again, this is just a guess, and this is just saying I think Costa and Gary are due to actually get back in the cage and fight.
I think all three of these guys are going to fight. This is awesome card. They're going to be in a showcase fight. They've got the right opponents. That's kind of the key to all this. Is like these are fights that really mean a lot to both for both sides of every single one of these. Like this is a really good show that I think we're going to get from all three of these guys. Let's all be positive. Nobody's pulling out, baby.
Yeah.
Cejudo's
this is a super chat. You have to give an answer. How dare you, New York Rick? Mike, do you have one?
Oh, man, I have to rank them.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm just respecting the super chat. You don't have to. There's no law.
I'll just keep them in the order you have them. You already ranked them for me. I'll stick with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll be visa issues of Paula. I mean, not because visa issues.
Dude, he's gonna be there. That fight.
It'll be something new. It'll be something new, but he's gonna have like rabies or something. Like it's always something with this guy. Like I don't know. Would that surprise you with Paulo Costa at this point? I petted a dog too hard and it bit me, and it's like, oh,
the The new UFC-led testing agency does not allow the threshold of secret juice that he has, and he's gonna have to be forced out of the fight.
There you go.
I'm so excited for 298. I cannot wait, and I think these sloggy past 2 Apex cards like set the tone perfectly. Like they put it on a tee beautifully. I cannot wait for Volkanovski Topuria. This whole main card next Saturday is friggin' incredible. Every fight is good. And it starts off, I mean, how do you kick off a main card, right? How do you kick off a pay-per-view main card of this magnitude leading into the most highly anticipated main event? What weight class do you call upon to kick off this main card? Oh, that's right. That's right. You call up the middleweights, baby. You call up Fluffy Hernandez and Roman Kopylov. There will be no middleweight action in that fight. That's how you set the table. Thank you very much.
I know when I'm thinking about these things, I look at who's setting the table and not who's at the head of the table, not who's like, the main course of the meal. I'm always looking like what is setting the table and not the top of the bill.
You need momentum.
That's the wrong way.
Momentum. Yeah. You need momentum. You need to kick it off beautifully.
All right. And now for our final super chat, our final question of this wonderful post show.
Why did Ihor the Duelist Potieria not danced?
What can I ask something truly? Why does everybody hate him so much? I like him. What's wrong? Why does everybody hate him?
Ask Shaheen and the rest of the Shogun Hive.
Because he beat Shogun.
You don't retire Shogun and then dance. You don't do that. You don't
He's
do it.
He's kind of fun. He's kind of goofy and fun. Like I like the guy. Everybody seems to hate the guy. Online, I get it. Look, Shogun means a lot to everybody, and I'm one of those old heads. I get it. Shogun is the man, but I don't know. He's kind of goofy. He's funny. I'm fine with this guy.
I mean, people were.
Was it Chris Gutierrez?
Do we hate him?
Did he do a dance over Frankie Edgar? It was like, hey, you're retired now. Hey, I did it.
It's the dancing. It's the dancing that. And people were really upset with the matchmaking.
I wish the audio people could see Casey's dance moves. They need to. If you're listening, go to the YouTube for that.
Yeah. Fast forward to near the end of the show and catch it. I guess you're already here. I guess I can't give that advice. And the other thing, people were very upset with the matchmaking in the first place. Everyone was just constantly asking, why are they making Shogun fight this guy for his last fight? Who is Ihor Porturia? And then the fact that he lost and the guy danced on him. They took out their anger on the matchmaking on Ihor. Ihor just did his job. Ihor just did his job.
Yeah.
Was probably feeling himself after. Holy crap, I just beat one of the greatest fighters of all time. I'm feeling myself. I'm going to do it. I got to hit my move. Why didn't he dance? Why didn't he dance on Saturday? He was pretty gassed. He was pretty gassed. Yeah. I mean, it was a clear win for him, but I still think Rizik, by the way, I know it was a kind of a stink bomb performance, but he's a dangerous guy, and Ihor had to work for that win. He had to work for that win. That was not an easy victory, and he looked pretty tired. I think dancing was the last thing on his mind.
Unless I'm mistaken, but it seemed like at the end he was on the wrong side of it, right? Like in the late part of the fight, unless I'm misremembering how that fight went. I thought he was clearly losing the final part of that fight, but maybe I'm misremembering. But yeah, it seemed like he was out of gas. It seemed like that was not his objective. He was funny on the mic though. I thought that was good. I thought that was interesting. Okay. I don't get the hate. I'm Team Ihor. I'm in.
Tell Shaheen to call off the dogs. It's him on social media every time. I just get people to go after the duelist. I'm like, settle down.
I hate to see what he's going to do to the person who retires Tony Ferguson. I mean, that's going to be.
Why would you bring that up?
Going to be brutal. I mean, maybe I'm hitting a beehive. Maybe I'm poking the bear a little bit. Let's see if he responds.
All right, and one more before we get out of here.
You're gonna end up like Macaulay Culkin in My Girl, Eric. That's the reference. I don't know. Super
Great
sad reference.
Great
Spoiler.
Oh, sorry, spoiler.
Jeez,
I'm allergic to bee stings.
Yeah,
that hurts my soul. Oh. Full circle, baby. Rick, you don't deserve an explanation from Achilles Jr. Also, you need to hit up Paulo.
He's right. I need Paulo ASAP. So after he fights, he can fly to the MMA Hour studio and we'll run it back. And that's the real prize. Getting to cut my hair one more time. No ponytail this time, but enough that we could do a nice little cut. So yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Thank you, friend.
And thank you all for all the compliments on my dancing. You guys are great.
Dude.
You made me feel appreciated.
I can't get out of my brain right now.
Elite stuff.
You're explaining it like the tone of your voice was like with the dance. It was incredible. I'll have to hit up Chris Gutierrez. Be like, can you show me your best dance move? Because I have to make sure these all match up. So, man, I mean, what a two memorable post-fight shows following not so memorable Apex cards. But boy, oh boy, we are on the road to UFC 298. But we have one last stop. Thanks to this UFC Vegas 86 card, AK and I doing some matchmaking tomorrow to discuss what's next for Jack Hermansson, Danny Ige, the main card winners, and a wild card pick. And then we're officially on the road to Anaheim. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilya Topuria. Cannot wait. It's going to be fun.
I will be on site. I'll be on the freeway. I'll be at the Honda Center. I will be there. I am Jose Youngs this week.
Yes.
I wish you just said I am Jose Youngs.
I am Jose Youngs.
For Jose Youngs, New York Rick, and AK, I am Mike Heck. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
I like comic books. How do you do that?
What a mimic. What a talented mimic Casey is. The dance moves, the comic book, he got it all.
Happy birthday, AK.
Shout out to Middleweight.